In the summer of 2021, I finally ended things with my ex, Olivia. Our relationship had been toxic for a while. Constant arguments, her checking my phone, showing up unannounced at my work. When I finally told her it was over, she didn't take it well. She cried, begged, then turned angry. She said things like, "You'll regret this," and "You can't just erase me." I ignored her, blocked her number, and tried to move on. For the first couple of weeks, it was quiet. Too quiet. I had expected her to blow up my phone, show up at my apartment, but she didn't. A part of me felt relieved, like maybe she had finally accepted it. I was wrong. It started small. One night, I came home from work, and my front door was unlocked. I froze. I always locked it. My heart pounded as I stepped inside, scanning the apartment. Nothing was missing. Nothing out of place. Maybe I had just forgotten. But the next day, I knew I hadn't imagined it. I woke up in the middle of the night, feeling off. My room was dark, but something felt different. The air was heavier. Then I saw it. My closet door was open. I never sleep with it open. A cold wave rushed over me. My closet was small, barely big enough to hold clothes, let alone a person. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, my hands shaking. I edged toward the closet, peering inside. Nothing. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was just paranoid. But things got worse. A week later, I was in my kitchen scrolling through my phone when I got a text. It was from Olivia. I hadn't seen her name in weeks. "Are you sleeping well?" My stomach dropped. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another text. "I like what you did with the living room." Panic surged through me. There was no way she could know what my apartment looked like. I had rearranged everything after we broke up. I rushed to my front door, checking the locks. Still secured. Then I checked the windows. And that's when I saw it. Handprints, smudged across the glass on the inside. I felt like I was going to be sick. My mind raced. Had she been in my apartment? When? How? I called my landlord the next morning, demanding they check the security cameras in the hallway. A few hours later, he called me back, his voice uneasy. He told me there was nothing. No one had entered or exited my apartment except me. That night, I barely slept. Every noise made my skin crawl. At some point, exhaustion took over and I drifted off. But when I woke up, my closet door was wide open. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the apartment. I drove around for hours, trying to calm down. When I finally came back, I stood outside my door, gathering my courage. I stepped inside, flipping on every light. Everything looked normal. But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The attic hatch in my hallway ceiling was slightly open. I had lived there for 2 years. I had never once gone into that attic. My legs felt weak as I grabbed a chair and a flashlight, my breath coming in shaky gasps. I climbed up, slowly pushing the hatch open. The attic was small, mostly empty, except for a pile of blankets in the corner, and a half-eaten granola bar. I felt my body go numb. Someone had been living there. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text from Olivia. "Took you long enough?" I ran. I called the police, shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. They came, searched the attic, but by then, it was empty. No sign of Olivia, no fingerprints, no proof. Just an open hatch and the overwhelming knowledge that she had been there, watching me for weeks. I moved out the next day. I don't know how long she had been living above me, how many nights I had slept while she was just feet away. But the worst part? A few weeks after I left, I got one final text. "I miss our late-night talks. In the spring of 2022, I finally got out of a relationship that had been draining me for months. My ex, Daniel, had been possessive, obsessive even. At first, I mistook it for passion, for love that was just a little too intense. But as time went on, his need for control became suffocating. He would show up unannounced at my work, demand to know where I was at all times, and constantly accuse me of lying. When I ended things, he didn't cry or yell. He just stared at me, his jaw clenched. Then he said, "You're making a mistake." I blocked his number and moved on. Or at least I thought I did. A few months later, I had a new apartment in a new part of town, a fresh start. It was a small but cozy one-bedroom in a quiet complex. I felt safe there. For the first time in a while, I could breathe. But then, strange things started happening. One evening, I came home from work, and the door was unlocked. I stood there, frozen, my stomach twisting into knots. I always locked my door. I pushed it open slowly, my heart hammering. Everything looked normal. Nothing missing, no signs of a break-in. Maybe I had been in a rush that morning and forgot. But that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next day, I double-checked the lock before leaving for work. I even took a picture of it, just to be sure. But when I came home, the door was unlocked again. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones. I went inside, checking every corner, every closet. Nothing. I convinced myself it had to be an issue with the lock, that maybe it wasn't catching properly. I called my landlord the next morning, and he sent a locksmith that afternoon. The guy inspected the lock, tested it a few times, and finally shrugged. "Nothing wrong with it," he said. "Seems fine to me." That night, I barely slept. Every creak, every shift of the building made my skin crawl. I kept the hallway light on, my eyes glued to the door. I didn't know what I was expecting. Someone to just walk in? A shadow moving through my apartment? I must have dozed off at some point because I woke up to my phone vibrating on my nightstand. A notification. A message. It was from an unknown number. "You looked peaceful." I sat up so fast I nearly knocked my phone to the floor. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I stared at the message, my mind racing. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just locked my phone and lay there, paralyzed. Someone had been watching me. The next morning I called the police. They took a report, but didn't seem too concerned. "Could be a prank," the officer said. "Block the number, let us know if anything else happens." That was it. No real sense of urgency, no investigation. I felt helpless. I changed the locks that day. I even had a deadbolt installed. For the first time in days, I finally felt like I had control again. But that night, something happened that shattered any illusion of safety I had left. I woke up to the sound of my front door unlocking. I couldn't breathe. I lay there, frozen, my body refusing to move. I listened as the lock clicked open. Then, silence. The door didn't swing open, but I knew someone was there, waiting, watching. I forced myself to move, slowly reaching for my phone. My hands were shaking as I opened the camera and angled it toward the doorway. I took a photo, too terrified to even look at the screen. Then, with every ounce of courage I had, I called out, "Who's there?" Silence. Then, after a moment, the sound of the door closing. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I kept my back against the wall, clutching my phone, waiting for something, anything, to happen. When morning finally came, I checked the photo. It was blurry, grainy from the darkness, but my stomach dropped at what I saw. The door was cracked open, just slightly, and in that narrow gap, barely visible, was an eye, watching me. I packed a bag and left that morning. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I stayed with a friend across town, barely able to function. The next day, I got a call from my landlord. "Hey," he said, "just checking in. You left your door wide open. Everything okay?" I felt sick. I told him what had been happening, and he sighed heavily before finally saying something that made my blood run cold. "Your ex came by last month asking about a spare key. Said he lost his." I told him no, obviously, but I don't know. Maybe he found a way to get one anyway. I moved out that weekend. I don't know how long he had been coming in at night, watching me sleep, unlocking my door, but I do know one thing. The last text he sent me, "You looked peaceful." It wasn't the first time. In the winter of 2022, I was finally getting back into dating after a long, messy breakup with my ex, Kyle. He had been manipulative, jealous, the kind of person who couldn't handle rejection. When I ended things, he didn't take it well. At first, he begged. Then he threatened. Then he just disappeared. No messages, no social media posts, just gone. A part of me was relieved, but another part of me always felt like it was too easy. Months passed, and I met someone new. His name was Ryan, and we connected through a dating app. He was charming, funny, and everything I thought I needed after Kyle. We talked for weeks before finally making plans to meet. He suggested a casual coffee shop downtown, and I agreed. The morning of our date, I got a text from an unknown number. "Don't go." I felt a chill run through me. My gut told me it was Kyle, but I had blocked his number, changed mine, and even moved apartments. How would he have found me? I ignored the text and went anyway. When I arrived, Ryan was already there, sitting at a table by the window. He smiled, waved, and I instantly felt at ease. The conversation flowed effortlessly. He knew so much about me. My favorite movies, my dream job, little details I barely even remembered mentioning. It was flattering at first, until it wasn't. Halfway through our coffee, he leaned in and said, "It's nice to finally see you in person." The way he said it made my stomach tighten. I forced a smile and asked what he meant. He hesitated, then laughed it off. "I just mean, after all our talks, it feels real now." I nodded, but something about his tone felt off. The rest of the date went fine, but that one moment stuck with me. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone vibrated. Another unknown number. He's lying about who he is. My heart pounded. I sat up, staring at the message, my mind racing. I replied, asking who this was, but there was no answer. I clicked on Ryan's profile again, scrolling through his pictures, his bio. It all seemed real, but something felt wrong. On a hunch, I reverse-searched one of his pictures. It wasn't him. The photos belonged to someone else, a random guy from another state. My blood ran cold. I had just gone on a date with someone using a stolen identity. I tried calling Ryan, but the number was suddenly disconnected. The profile? Deleted. It was like he had never existed. Panic set in. Who had I just met? And more importantly, how did this unknown number know? The next day, I filed a report with the dating app. They said they'd look into it, but their response felt generic, like this was just another scammer case. But this wasn't just some catfish. It was personal. That night, I got another message. "Check your closet." I froze. My breath came in short gasps as I slowly turned toward the closet door. It was closed. I had checked it before bed. I knew I had. My hands shook as I reached for the handle, yanking it open. Nothing. Just my clothes, my shoes, my bags. I let out a shaky laugh, feeling ridiculous. But when I turned back toward my bed, my phone buzzed again. "You missed something." A cold wave washed over me. I hesitated, then pushed deeper into my closet, reaching for the back wall. My fingers brushed against something cold. A small camera, taped inside my closet, facing my bed. I stumbled back, my stomach twisting. My hands shook as I ripped it off the wall. I had been watched. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The police arrived quickly, and when they searched my apartment, they found more cameras. One in my vent, another under my desk. Someone had been monitoring me. Then they checked the footage. And my world collapsed. The cameras had been installed months ago. The footage showed someone moving freely through my apartment while I slept, adjusting the cameras, sitting on my couch, watching me. But the worst part? The person in the footage wasn't Ryan. It was Kyle. He had never disappeared. He had just been waiting. I moved out the next day, changed my number, left town, did everything I could to erase myself from his reach. But sometimes, even now, I still get texts from unknown numbers. You looked peaceful. Some breakups never end. A hidden presence, a door unlocking at night, a face that isn't real. Sometimes the past refuses to stay in the past. If these stories kept you on edge, like this video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more terrifying true horror stories. And don't forget to hit the bell icon, because some exes never really leave.